we present to you Sports on Main.
What's up, Bears fans? I'm Steve Weissman, here for a very special interview with two Ursinus legends, Mike Brophy, class of 81, and Steve Donahue, class of 84. Mike Brophy here was a star for the 1981 men's basketball team that made the Final Four and finished the season ranked number 3 in the nation. And Steve Donahue was a freshman on that team and later on was the captain of the Bear squad. And after graduating, Steve has had a very illustrious coaching career, coaching at numerous powerhouses all over the Northeast, and since 2015 has been the head coach for the University of Pennsylvania. Thank you guys both so much for coming on and doing this with me. Let's just get started. So The first question I have is for both of you, and it's pretty simple and straightforward. What do both of you miss most about going to school here?
I can tell you first, the thing I think I loved about Ursinus was, with the basketball in particular, just a group of guys that you felt such a closeness to, a family atmosphere. And honestly, it's what turned me on to staying and coaching. That you just don't get that where everybody is pulling for each other, that close-knit group. And then obviously achieving a lot of things when, you had so much adversity to get over. And the size of the school, everything like that. But more importantly, I just miss the people I played with.
Absolutely. And Steve, I to echo his comments, I couldn't agree more. Stephen, with how small the school is, and going there and meeting new people, everything else, basketball became a very, at least from my standpoint, freshman year, be able to click and connect with people that were on the same page. Basically, hard work, get out there and the players that I played with, and Steve, I'm sure would say the same thing. We go through, and not too many times that you have that. You go through and the ups and downs, tough losses, good wins, and everything else, and then to be able to stay close friends, lifetime friends, forever, and stay in touch is just tremendous.
I think that's just one more thing I'll say, Stephen, because I use this in my recruiting. I always say to my guys I recruit, I said, I want 2 tables at your wedding, because that's what we got. We got, me and Mike are friends 42 years later. My best friends in the world are my college teammates. They're the godparents to my kids. And it's, as I said, it's the reason I wanted to get into coaching and is to replicate what we had at Ursinus. It was that special.
Yeah, that's awesome. And especially at a school like Ursinus, I know I saw online somewhere that before you guys made the tournament, just during the season, you were getting 20, 30, 40 fans at each of your games. And then when you go into the Final Four, you have hundreds, if not thousands of people rooting for you. So you really, not only your whole team was brought together, but you brought a whole community together. And you don't get that at a big time D1 school. So yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
Absolutely right.
Okay, so my next question, Mike, I'm going to ask you, do you have just a single favorite, just pure basketball moment from your Ursinus career?
Yes, from over the 4 years, probably the best moment was in the 81, our senior year, in the regional finals, which would be the equivalent like the Elite Eight. So we made to quarterfinals, and we're playing Potsdam State. Potsdam State had, we're playing Uppsala. Potsdam State was the team we lost to in the Final Four, but we're playing Uppsala at their home gym. And place was packed, as you can imagine, and going up there, and we really weren't given much of a chance. Uppsala had made the Final Four, I believe, 2 of the last 3 years prior, had a couple seniors on the team, one of which I had got drafted or got a tryout with the Knicks. And we went up there, and just a very close game and tight game, and came down to the end, and late in the second half, and earlier in the game, someone had thrown toilet paper onto the court. And a warning came out saying whoever throws it on again will be assessed a technical foul. Well, folklore has it that late in the game, a foul was called on me, an offensive foul, and toilet paper was thrown from the opposing side, from Uppsala's side, and a technical foul was called on their team. And I think it was Kevin McCormick ended up making 2 foul shots, and we went on a little run and we won that game and made it to the final four. But it was just something that encapsulated, we were down the game and again, tight game back and forth, but the camaraderie and nobody ever gave up. And, to Steve's point earlier, getting over the hard times and adversity, and nobody would have ever thought that we could win that. And actually I believe it was on St. Patty's Day that happened, and went to the Final Four. And still today we talk about that, who the heck threw that toilet paper onto the court. But
thank you to whoever did that.
They were anonymous.
That's amazing. And I also know the game before that, to get to that matchup against Uppsala, wasn't there an interesting ending to that one too, against William Patterson? I'm pretty sure there's something about a inbounds pass.
Yeah, that was a play call, if I recall, Stephen. Zad F&M was the host, and we beat them in the opening round. They were 25-2, and then we played William Patterson, and they had an All-American point guard in Clinton Wheeler, and they at the end of the game, it was tie game, and I believe Dave Petita had thrown an inbounds pass. Excuse me, I think it was Kevin McCormick. Kevin, because he could, we practiced this in every practice with long length of the court passes, threw an inbound pass to Dave Petita, who caught the ball and scored pretty much at the buzzer to win the game. And so that's when we started to really believe, hey, maybe we're onto something here and we can really go far.
On to the next question. Back to you, Mike. So, sorry, 1 second. You said that when you first got to Ursinus, your team was practicing against folding chairs. And the year before you got to school, the team record was 1-19. How did it feel to not only be a part of, but to be a centerpiece of a complete and clear turnaround from going 1-19 to making the Final Four in 4 years?
Well, first of all, Stephen, I take umbrage with being the centerpiece. I was a small part in what was a great team and leadership. And you talk about, Coach Worley. Well, he early on knew when he took the job, he had asked to be an assistant, Tom Englesby. And Tom Englesby came and, had played in the NBA, played at a very high level, played in the Final Four. So, Tom's coming to coach Division III, which was such a bonus for us. And Skip had huge success at Springfield in high school and came. And so our first captain that year was Mike Piatrowitz. And Mike Piatrowitz had told us these stories about the year before and practicing against folding chairs because they didn't have enough players on the team. And they'd have to do drills where they'd fake the chair and do everything. So everything to him was brand new, of course, and a ray of sunshine to be able to go out and do that. But Skip, freshman year, we had 7 freshmen on the team that made the team. And, Skip and Tom had to make some tough decisions because they cut some guys that had been on the team for 3 years. They cut some seniors that had come out in the team. Granted, they weren't that, successful record-wise, but had cut these guys. But Skip and Tom knew that, hey, if we want to turn the corner here, here's what we have to do. And they ended up going from 1-19 the year before we got there to our freshman year, we were 13-8, I believe. And come back and had a very successful year and just went on from there. So, but it was definitely, we talked about earlier with the spreads of the points, we're having 5 guys averaging double figures within a point or two of each other. There was no real star on the team.
Yeah, that's a great point. But I don't want you to sell yourself short, because you were the sixth man for your first 3 years. And as a sixth man, you still managed to win the most outstanding defensive player for your team. And your senior year, you moved into the starting 5. And I believe both your junior and senior year, you led the team in field goal percentage, which kind of just leads into my next question. Because you were a sixth man who was still contributing to the team, you had a legit role on the team for 3 years. How did you have to change anything from being a sixth man to joining the starting 5 in between your junior and senior year?
No, Stephen, and that's was the beauty of our team. We had 12 guys that could play. And so, yes, I came off the bench for 3 years. But as coach would say, hey, when you're on the court, or who's playing at the critical time is the most important, or where you want to be. And we had teams, I think we were called back then, where North Carolina did it, where they would send shifts in, 5 guys, and Dean Smith would then have 5 new guys come on and kind of just, for 3-4 minutes, fresh legs get out there. And Skip and Tom Englesby had the same approach, and where guys would come off the bench and be able to go out there and just give it their all for 2, 3, 4 minutes. And as a matter of fact, I think it was given the name from Dennis Letty, called Deno's Raiders. And so it'd be guys like, Jack Devine and Jay DeFrugio and Dennis Letty, Larry Davis. These guys would come out there, Kevin Callahan, and most of the times where they would come down, and if we were up by 2 or 3 points when the second team came in, we'd come back into the game up 5 or 6 points. Mm-hmm. Very rarely did we lose points by having those guys. And that's just a testament to our practice and how hard our practices were and how much we pushed each other.
Yeah, speaking of the Raiders, I know that specifically in the third place consolation game against Otterbein, I think, in the second quarter, you guys were down by 5 or 6 points, and the Raiders went in and they played 4 minutes, and you guys were up by 3 going into halftime. So,
oh wow, you I know they did well. I don't know you obviously dug hard to get those stats.
I've searched through a lot of old Grizzly articles in the past few days.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. On to Stephen. I have one question about. Sorry. Actually, no. This question's for both of you. So the biggest thing that Ursinus students today, like myself, share with Ursinus students from whenever, specifically the 80s works too, is our mutual hatred for Johns Hopkins. So in your guys' Final Four season, I know that your first loss, your only conference loss, was in your first matchup against Hopkins. And then the second time when you guys played them at Helfrich Hall, you guys blew them out of the water. I just want to ask you guys how nice it felt to just beat Hopkins up.
You want to go first?
You can take that.
Yeah, I'd say this, and I'm sure you can find it out in the record, Stephen. We didn't win in the state of Maryland in our first 3 years.
Oh, wow.
So that encompassed what I think is now called McDaniel, Western Maryland, mm-hmm. Washington College, and Johns Hopkins. So literally, we would play down there, 3 times a year. And we lost every time, some of them very controversial games, endings.
As they always are with Hopkins.
And yet I believe each time, it's definitely in our junior, senior year, we would win on our home court. So that was always gratifying. And I think it wasn't until our senior year and I'm not quite sure if it was at Hopkins or at Washington College, where I think it was at Hopkins, where we finally beat them after 3 years of falling to them. So yeah, it was. I know your rivalry today is Hopkins. We had different rivalries back then, but it was so tough winning in the state of Maryland.
Yeah.
It's funny. Yeah, I thought our rivalry was really Widener at the time. They were,
Correct.
a top 10 team, and we actually played them 4 times the next year and finally won the last time to advance to the Elite Eight. But those games were wild. And I do think that's, been in coaching now, but obviously when you win at any school, it takes the whole student bodies. But there's nothing like Ursinus because literally everybody on campus was involved in it, which obviously made it that much more special.
Good
Yeah,
point.
that's a beautiful thing about Ursinus. Another question, Steve. So I saw that you started coaching basketball immediately after college. However, you did not get paid to coach basketball until you were well into your 30s. Was there ever a moment where you were close to leaving basketball because you just thought it wasn't worth it anymore?
Honestly, sure. There's always doubts in your mind. Every time the season wrapped up, I would, kind of collect my thoughts and see where I was in my life, and things start to change. You have a family and you got other responsibilities, and yet I'm chasing, obviously, my dream, and I'm not getting paid to do it. So it was difficult, but I always just came back, and I've had obviously a great family and wife and a mom and dad who's kind of supported my thoughts. And I always just came back that I just know I want to do something I love, and there's something I can give an impact. And I always came back. I don't think I'm going to find something better than coaching basketball. And I always say, basketball is definitely part of it, but I'm really coaching young men, and basketball just has to be the conduit that helps me do that. So all those years I wasn't getting paid, and I honestly evaluated it and just always came back to that decision that I think this is still the best thing for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, it really takes a love of the game to make a life out of it. For both of you, right after your guys' Final Four season, Coach Worley was quoted saying this: "They became the best they were capable of becoming. If these young men put into life what they put into this season, they will all be successful." I know that both of you still have a relationship with Skip to this day, and I also know that your Final Four team was the first team that consisted solely of players recruited by Skip. So how does this make you feel, knowing that you made Coach proud and you proved him right?
Well, from the standpoint of Coach, we speaking, I'm sure Steve, being in the coaching field, is much tighter with that and everything Skip's gone through, but just have the utmost respect for Skip, for what he did for us as a team. As Steve said, he's not necessarily coaching a team, he's coaching young men, and the support that and everything he gave for the years he was at Ursinus, for those, I believe, 6 years that he was at Ursinus, he gave everything he had. He traveled from Springfield, Delaware County before the Blue Route was even finished, or 422, and took an hour to get there and back and forth every day. And all the sacrifices that he made for us. And so personally, I'm forever indebted to him. I'm very thankful to be able to call him a close friend. And I think all the people, from Mike Piatchwitz, who was his first captain, to Steve Donahue, who was his last captain, and everyone would most likely say the same thing and the impact they had on them. And I think Skip is directly responsible for how successful all of us have become.
That's awesome.
I couldn't agree more, bro. As a coach, I just marvel at Skip's ability to stay in all of our lives for all these years. I think we all kind of at some time during the day and weeks that go by, we think of things that Skip said and thoughts that he had and just the great impact that he had on all of us. And there is a lot, all of us, for the most part on that team, have had great success personally with families and in our professional lives. And I think all of us would think that our experience at Ursinus and in particular, Skip's mentoring had a lot to do with it.
Yep. One more question, Steve. So this is more about your coaching career after Ursinus. You have now made it to the NCAA tournament for two different schools, for Cornell and for Penn. When you made it with Cornell for the first time, I believe it was the first time, you made it all the way to the Sweet 16. And when you're in the Sweet 16, you played against Kansas, who had 3 future NBA players, one of them being Devontae Graham, who's almost a star at this point. What do you do to talk to your kids to like, because you're coaching an Ivy League school, which obviously is still Division I and very, very competitive, but how do you're not producing NBA players this year. How do you convince your kids that that a team is more important than the individual? Because you guys played up against teams that were much more talented than you, but you guys made it to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I think the thing I think that people don't realize is all of our guys who play for us, they feel that they're on the same level as Kentucky. And that was the Kentucky team with John Wall, Cousins, and Bledsoe that we met in the Sweet 16. And I just think at that point, there's such belief in each other that they really don't take a look and say, you know, we look at ourselves differently than Kentucky does. I think that's the beauty of sports. That's the beauty of being on a team and getting lost in the competition and not fearing anyone because you've worked so hard together to achieve this. So I think as I said, I think that's what drives all of us in sports and teams, and that we feel, you know, if we work together, then we got a chance to really accomplish great things. And that's what that group did at Cornell for sure.
Yeah,
Stephen, if I could interject just one thing, and Steve's being pretty modest here. So I was actually at that game. It was at the Carrier Dome for the Sweet 16, and here he talked about coaching the Ivy League team. And after the game was tough loss and everything else, and he had his kids in class the next day for 8 a.m. classes while Kentucky went to New York City and to party. But along the same lines, you talk about, the Ivy League and taking Penn. So Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was your first or second year at Penn, and you're playing at Villanova. I think you had to use 3 timeouts in the first 10 minutes. You were down, 25-2 or maybe more than that. It was not a pretty sight. And Stephen, 2 years later at the Palestra, Villanova comes in there and Steve beats them. Maybe it was 3 years later when he wins the Big Five. So you talk about a player, and these players that get out there, there's not can't in their mind. They get out there and you're rolling the ball out and going, and Steve has those kids believing that they can beat anybody.
I appreciate that, Brophy. And I do think, like all of us, I think my experience at Ursinus and and I tell this to my own team, like what Ursinus accomplished during those years when Skip and Mike being a huge part of the Final Four and the next year the Elite Eight. That's as great accomplishment as I've been around in basketball. Just because it happened at the Division III level doesn't, minimize what incredible accomplishment we have. And I think that's what drives me to make sure our guys know that we can accomplish so much more if we just stick together and just kind of grow from adversity. And I go back to it. I think all of our experiences at Ursinus really helped us all in those kind of things in life.
Yeah,
Well
definitely.
said.
I know you guys, it's not really like this today, but you guys every year would play Penn State and Division II teams, and you guys definitely had, Skip was definitely telling you the same exact mindset. You guys were believing that you were up there with Division I Penn State. So yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Well, and I'm sorry, the Ursinus team came in. We had them at the Palestra 3 or 4 years ago.
Yep.
And they went toe to toe. Like, it was impressive. We won a little bit down the stretch, but it was an incredible game by Kevin Small and his kids. And I'm on the other end of it, but I was a proud alum that day.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys, well, I'm pretty sure you guys know this, but Skip just got the new basketball team room named after him, and it's gorgeous in there. Just wanted to throw that in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know all about it, and it's we're very grateful that Ursinus and a lot of alums were able to do it for Skip, because we just feel he meant so much to Ursinus and obviously in particular the men's basketball program.
Yeah. So one last question. I'm gonna let you guys go. While doing research for this, I kept coming across the Big U. I've never heard that term. Do either of you want to go in a little on what the Big U is? What that signifies?
I have no idea what you're talking about, bro.
Yeah, I think it was just something that back in, I won't say in the day, but back in the late 70s and early 80s, we didn't have nicknames. I mean, obviously we're called the Bears, but I don't know the origin of that, Stephen, to be honest with you. I know that since we got out, things have been just within our group. We actually UCLA was very dominant back in our
The Bruins. Yep.
UCLA, and with the Bruins and everything else. And I believe it was Dennis Letty that coined the phrase, or coined the thing of UCPA. Okay, it's the your science college in PA, and but I'm not quite sure where the origin of the Big U came from. You'd have to do a little bit more research on that, I think.
Sounds good. Yeah, the Bruins too. You guys all over the Grizzly were referred to as the Bruins, which I thought was amazing.
Yeah, we had such a just to finish up, that a gathering, we had no, being Division III, you're not getting scholarships or anything else. So just something as simple as getting practice jerseys, sneakers, things like that. So we had a group put together, led by Bill Daggett at the time, and other guys, Roy Wenhold and Bob Geist and others, that would raise money. So we could go on trips, and we could have things to make us feel closer, like, those Division I teams that were getting everything else. So, for us being, Division III kids coming in, it was a big deal, to have your own practice jersey and your own set of sneakers and things like that. So, but as Steve said, and just in life, I mean, you can be put up against the big dogs and everything else, but hey, on any given day, and Coach Worley and Coach Englesby and made us believe that we could beat anybody. And just one last one on that is, you talk about Penn State. We played Penn State a couple of years in a row, and we lost every one of them. And one year, I don't know if it was our junior or senior year, I think it was our senior year, we went up there and we're only down 3 or 4 points at halftime. We ended up losing by 25, And the coach of the team, who was good friends with Skip, Dick Carter, told Skip after the game, "That's it. I'm done with playing you guys." He said, I'll never be looked in the face if I lose to a Division III team." Gave a lot of respect to Skip and to Ursinus College.
Yeah, just playing, like, just having the opportunity to go up against Division I talent when you're a Division III school does wonders for everyone involved. So, yeah, that
Absolutely.
definitely helped you guys out a bunch. That pretty much wraps up everything I wanted to ask you guys. Thank you both so much for doing this with me. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot.
My pleasure, Stephen.
Thanks for having us. It was great going down memory lane. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
No problem. Anytime. All right.
Take
Well,
care. Good luck.
I'll let
Good
you
luck.
get home safely.
Good luck to you, Stephen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a
Take
good night,
care.
guys.
See ya.
Have a good night.
Bye.